Okay. Good morning. I'm going to switch gears just slightly. You've been hearing from some amazing business partners and the leadership that they've shown around issues of early care and education in Wisconsin and understanding the critical importance of it and supporting it and supporting their employees it's impressive, and thank you so much to both of you for being here this morning and sharing the work that you're doing with us. So my association exists to create a better world for Wisconsin's young children. We do this by working with the adults that care for and educate over 70% of Wisconsin's kids under the age of 5. Wisconsin's workforce, Wisconsin's businesses, Wisconsin's communities, and our economy all rely on having access to high-quality, affordable childcare. I plan to share with you today some of the challenges that we face, and I want to end with a call to action on how you can partner to bring about positive change for our very fragile system of early childhood care and education. I don't have enough hands for this. Okay. And I went the wrong way too. So it must, I can see how you did that. It takes great skill. Okay. So I'm going to be weaving into my presentation today a lot of data, and it may feel a little overwhelming to have just a lot of numbers thrown at you, but even if you can remember a few of them, they tell a really critical story. So why is it that Wisconsin's workforce needs affordable, high-quality childcare? One reason, not the only reason, is that women work. Nationally, 64% of moms with young children are in our workforce. And without women working, since 1970, our nation's economy would be fully $2 trillion less than it is today. And the median family income would be $14,000 less. But what's happening in terms of women in the workforce is that a lot of what we consider sort of high potential women, probably every woman in this room, and probably many of our friends and acquaintances, fall in this category of high potential women: education, experience, skills, adaptability. And a third of high potential women drop out of the workforce every year, primarily because of childcare challenges. Additionally, millennials work, and thanks to Mark for bringing this up, it's the millennials that are also starting lots of families in Wisconsin. So over 1/3 of our whole workforce is millennials, and millennials represent 80% of all births. And this issue also was brought up. Working families across the country lose wages annually due to a breakdown in childcare arrangements. Nationally, it's been quantified to be about $8.3 billion in lost wages. Both Secretary Anderson and I think both of the other presenters today have talked about the unemployment rate in Wisconsin. The unemployment rate in Wisconsin right now is 3%. It's really hard for businesses to recruit, hire, and retain good employees. 60% of employers nationally have job vacancies that last for 12 weeks or more. I was talking to Mark before the presentation started this morning, and he said 12 weeks. I would love 12 weeks. In Wisconsin, it's possible, and certainly in rural areas of Wisconsin, it's probable that that job vacancy rate is much longer than 12 weeks. U.S. businesses are losing between $3 and $4 billion annually because of absenteeism due to childcare breakdowns. And for businesses, and certainly Anna touched on this, and Tri-North Builders has figured this out, providing childcare support reduces turnover by as much as 60%. So for our private sector in Wisconsin, the need to both hire and retain employees can be dramatically improved by linking and partnering to support early care and education initiatives in your communities. Fully 83% of millennials say that they would consider leaving a job to go work for Mark with family-friendly workplace standards in place. So this is, in some counties around the state, we're hearing that this is actually hitting crisis levels, that businesses are not capable of hiring and keeping people employed. Now I want to move on to the children. We've talked about the workforce, we've talked about the business community, but the reason really why we need strong, affordable, high-quality childcare is because of our kids. In Wisconsin, we have close to 440,000 children under the age of 4. And 74% of those kids have all available parents, family members, in the workforce. So these are children who are in, some are in 4-year-old kindergarten, probably about 50,000 of them are in 4-year-old kindergarten, probably about 16,000 of them are in Head Start programs. But that leaves, when we look at the numbers, close to 260,000 children in Wisconsin who are in childcare. And many kids in Wisconsin are getting childcare for up to 50 hours a week. So I like to talk about how childcare is where our youngest children are spending the majority of their waking hours. And we have a critical opportunity and a critical important demand on us to meet the needs of those children and to provide adequate care and education for all the reasons that Mark talked about, Secretary Anderson talked about, Anna talked about, in terms of the amazing benefits that come to children, to families, to employers, to our communities when we get it right. For young children, especially in the first 18 months of life and all the way up to 36 months of life, they're forming 1 million new neural connections in their brain every second. So why is this so critical? Because it's laying the scaffolding for all future learning. Cognitive learning, social emotional learning, it's all happening in those very early years of life. And the return on investment is estimated by economists in our country to be anywhere from $7 for every dollar invested all the way up to $17 for every dollar invested. Economists in the nation have said, really, for our nation, the absolute best way we could be investing our dollars would be in improving and paying for a strong early care and education system. And so, what does good child care get us? Well, it gets us higher graduation rates, and it gets us lower levels of special education investments that we need in our nation. It increases college graduation, and it decreases teen pregnancy. It increases employment rates, and it decreases incarceration, and it decreases reliance on public assistance. So all of this makes total economic sense as to why we should be investing more in our early care and education system. So I'll let you take this in a second, and mostly I just want to point out that despite what we know, and despite where we should be putting our investments, all is not well in our country with early care and education. Based on UNICEF rankings from 2015, the United States ranks 26th out of 29 of the richest countries in the world for child well-being. It ranks 22nd out of 29 on child care quality, and it ranks 16th for affordability. On average, child care in America costs $10,000 a year. Infant care in Wisconsin can be as high as $15,000 a year. And if you think about those millennials that are having children and are at the beginning of their careers, coming up with $15,000 means that essentially they'd have had to start sticking money in their piggy banks when they were 8 to have enough money to be able to afford to have kids at some point in their life. And it's important to know that despite the expense of childcare, right now, less than 1% of revenues that go into supporting early care and education are coming from business and philanthropy. So there's a huge opportunity here, really, in terms of tapping in differently and really making an economic argument as to why this is so important. Across America, half of Americans live where there's an undersupply of childcare. And in Wisconsin, 35% of our counties have access to regulated childcare to meet the needs of less than 50% of the demand in their counties. To me, when I heard that, that was startling, to think about the fact that we only have regulated care. So these are licensed family child care programs, licensed group child care programs. And in many counties, we only have capacity to serve half of the demand for those services, which to me is scary because it also raises the question of where are these kids and what type of settings are they in, and are they in less than optimal early learning experiences at their youngest ages. So one might wonder, if you're a savvy business person, if there's so much of a demand for childcare, and if we know that in many of our counties, 50% of the kids still need care, why aren't more people opening childcare programs? So people are already starting to chuckle, so those must be the people that work in childcare. And this is really important, I think. I've had several presentations with business leaders and really coming to understand what's going on in childcare. Why is it expensive, and why aren't people going into it? In Wisconsin, over half of the childcare workforce has at least an associate's degree. And I know, Mark, I heard you say I think 60% is what we're shooting for in Wisconsin for the overall workforce. We already are meeting close to that number in our early learning workforce. However, as opposed to the broader workforce in Wisconsin, that an associate's degree earns you about $18 an hour, in childcare it earns you about $10 an hour. 17% of teaching staff work in programs that offer and they take advantage of employer-sponsored health care. So this is a workforce that has poor wages and a lack of access to other benefits that many of us just take for granted. As Secretary Anderson said, it's just built into the nature. We expect our employers to be providing us with health insurance options. That's not a reality for people that work in this field. And 36% of our current child care workforce in Wisconsin is on public assistance themselves. And so what does this do? This sparks incredibly high turnover. And when you have low compensation and you have low unemployment, you have lots of job opportunities out there for people who are working in early care and education to leave the field and go elsewhere. We hear stories about people leaving the field to go work at Quick Trip because they get stable hours, they earn a higher wage, and they often have access to benefits. So in Wisconsin, we have a 35% turnover rate for people that work in childcare. And in some of our 2-star rated programs, so this is within our quality rating system, some of you probably know this, the turnover rate of teachers in our lower rated programs in Wisconsin is fully 50%, which means children at a time when they really need to be forming these tight relationships with adult caregivers are experiencing the trauma and the stress of having their child care provider leave the classroom, which is essentially saying that we have a child care system that has sort of this element of stress and trauma built into it in terms of what our children are experiencing in their programs. So what is it that you can do? Whether you're a business leader or not, it's important to know why childcare is critical to the economy of our state and to businesses in our state. And I think you've heard that in spades today. It's really important to spread the word. So take advantage of opportunities to have community meetings, to go to civic groups and have presentations and meetings and discussions about what's happening. Talk to people at your churches. Talk to people in your schools. Talk to people at your health clubs. This is critical, and it's something that affects all of us. Consider using your voice to shape policies and investments. And make sure that your community is working on creative solutions. And if you want to be even bolder in what you're doing, consider doing some of the things that both OEM Fabricators is doing, that Tri-North Builders is doing, and consider investing in early care and education programs in your communities. Consider subsidizing employee child care costs. Consider pooling your resources with other businesses in order to grow your impact. There's a lot of businesses that can't afford to open an on-site childcare program or have not yet done the math as to why that's a wise investment. However, if you pool your resources with other businesses in your community and think about ways that you can invest differently to help expand or grow childcare facilities, that may not be as big of an economic burden to you as business folks. And consider expanding paid family and medical leave offerings at your business. And I have one or two closing comments. Only 7% of employers nationally offer on-site childcare or have access to childcare that's near where you're located. And only 2% of American organizations actually help pay for childcare or provide subsidies with vouchers for their employees. So today, think about this and think about what it means to your bottom line. Think about what you can do in your communities. And please, while you're here today, take time to thank an early childhood educator, because they really are the bread and butter of our economy, and they're the brain architects of our future workforce. So this is absolutely critical.